There's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Man, this stuff rocks.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
What's up, guys? This is Dave from Fear of Water, and you are watching BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather. And as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome Dave Perry. He's the drummer of Raw, also drum tech for Nothing More, and host of the Mind Meld podcast with Dave Perry, of course. Dave has released his new single entitled One Day featuring Heidi Shepherd of the Butcher Babies. Also, he's released Systematic featuring Aaron Nordstrom of Gemini Syndrome and Codependent Parasites featuring Elias Soriano of Nonpoint. And Dave has future collaborations with Clint Lowery of Sevendust and completed with several other exciting creative partnerships, which I can't wait to see what else he's got in the store here for us. But also check out Dave's previous album that he's got out, The Last Thing That You Do from 2020. We're going to talk to David, all this good stuff. So welcome to the podcast, man. And sorry for the lengthy intro.
No worries. I've been up to a lot. I think it's worth noting that all of the music that you just listed is under my solo project, which is called Fear of Water. So yeah, I'm the drummer for Raw, and I've been the drum tech for Nothing More through a couple of tours, 2022, 2023. But really my main focus now is this solo musical endeavor, one-man band. I write and record and perform everything, and then in conjunction with each song that I release is a collaboration with like a well-established featured artist from a wide variety of bands. And yeah, I've released five collaborations so far and have several other in the works. And yeah, it's been a pretty exciting time to be working on this project.
You're overcoming being clinically deaf. I want to talk about this. Give me some information on that. I mean, I read that and I was like, what?
I mean, when you say overcoming it, it implies that it's something that I'm still dealing with. And unfortunately, that's not the case. But yeah, I was born clinically deaf, which I think a lot of people think about deafness as a binary thing. It's like you can either hear or you can't. But I would encourage people who aren't familiar with the concept to think about vision, right? There's a lot of gray area in between perfect 20/20 vision and eyeballs that do not function. So I was born with heavily damaged various components of the hearing system essentially within your brain, and that was the result. It was the byproduct of really advanced overlapping double ear infections that basically started as soon as I got out of the womb and just went undiagnosed for quite a long period of time. And then I don't really know like what the core issue was, but like that persisted for years. Like it just kept happening over and over again. They were trying different medications. I got surgeries done. I went through years of speech therapy. But yeah, so I wasn't really talking until about 5, when most kids are talking at like, first words around 1. And so that really like regressed me. I had so much like cognitive development catch up to do with all of my peers that it really like set me back several years. And fortunately, during that recovery process, and like I said, going to speech therapy, that music was actually a huge part of like unlocking these, like kind of shattering these cognitive blocks that I had formed, in the same way that like a stroke patient or someone that suffers like a severe head trauma really like fucks with the wiring in your brain and the way that the different parts are talking to each other, and its ability to form synapses and evolve and absorb new information and abilities. Music was a huge part of getting through all of those barricades that have been set up through most of my childhood not being equipped with fully functional hearing, which had an impact on my ability to speak and everything else. So, yeah, man, it really set me on an interesting course early in life, where I knew that music was something that I was destined to sounds very dramatic, but like the fact that music literally had a cognitive impact on my brain's ability to absorb information and to evolve, adapt new skills. I knew that it would be foolish to not listen to like the universe, my body, whatever biology is telling me. Music is something that's like deeply ingrained in you and has a positive impact on your development and evolution as a human. So ever since that point, I've just been obsessed with totally immersing myself in music, learning as many instruments as possible, playing as much as possible, writing and recording and putting out as much as possible. But yeah, happy to report fully functional hearing now.
Isn't it beautiful how music can just take the worst times of your life and just bring you out to that light and just makes you feel like it just takes you away. I mean, it fills your mind with, your own little story that you have, what that song really means to you, but it means something else to the artist who's writing it. It's a beautiful thing how music is therapy and just soothes the beast, as I say.
For sure. On multiple different levels. I mean, you're talking about it from like an almost therapeutic standpoint, an emotional catharsis and I certainly have that as well, but also this is more from like a literal like cognitive function standpoint. There are interviews with like coma patients that recall hearing music, or music is like what woke them up out of their coma. Yeah, even like it's interesting seeing how music, there's a few prominent singers. I'm blanking on the name, but there's a few different country artists actually have pretty profound stutters, and when they sing, it totally goes away. Like it activates a totally different part of the brain that kind of like, I'm not a neurologist. I don't know. I don't know how that happens or why, but it's pretty amazing that music is literally this like entirely different stimuli for us, and activates our brains and interacts with our hearts and our souls and our minds in a completely different way than just normal, talking and conversational stuff or whatever. So yeah, man, there's something distinctly special about the power of music for sure.
Yeah, Mel Tillis, I believe, is one of those singers in country that has that, and when he sings, it's just like
Yeah.
he's normal. So crazy, so crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
When did you decide, Dave, to start releasing your own music? And were you a little nervous at first putting your own stuff out there, or nah?
So early on, like I was developing my own abilities to it sounds weird to say like as a solo artist because I was a kid, but like I was working on kids learn to play music like together, like as a band, or like you have a buddy. It's like, yeah, I'm a bass player and he's a drummer and we just jam out all the time. I didn't have that for a really long time. And I got pretty used to the idea of this like one man band thing early on. And I wasn't thinking about it from like a commercial standpoint. I just was like, got very comfortable with the idea, especially taking influence from like guys like Trent Reznor and Dave Grohl and Clint Lowery, people who are successful musicians who are multi-instrumentalists, and that they use that multi-instrumental capabilities in various different ways in terms of maybe they switch up instruments depending what band they play with, or if they go into the studio like Dave Grohl, he records all of the parts. So early on, I knew that I wasn't like, I have to be a guitar player and then I have to find other people to play with. And as that's fun to do, like creating art and music democratically is a fulfilling experience. But yeah, just for many, many years, I was doing this by myself. And this is definitely like pre-streaming sites or whatever. So yeah, I don't, to answer your question about like being nervous, I think performing music live is much more nerve-wracking than releasing something. And because of like releasing something is like it's maybe it's different with different artists, but for me it goes through like so many rounds of refinement and checking with my peers and listening to a certain mix on like studio monitors and your cell phone and earbuds and a Bluetooth speaker, and like it just goes through so many different just so much quality control to make sure it's exactly what I want it to be. So I think it's a good thing that I was already used to going into the studio. And again, this is when I was like a teenager, but like I was already used to recording music by myself and putting it out in this example in a physical format. But like the transition to online, and especially like putting my music in like YouTube videos or whatever, it definitely opened up a different dialogue that I wasn't having before, where basically, you know, people in the comment section getting real-time feedback in terms of, you know, it definitely ranges from good to bad. Like the haters don't hesitate at all to let you know that they hate what you do. Yeah, I've been doing this for
Oh,
so long that I have such a thick skin to that. And, you know, I'm putting music out there for the purpose of sharing it and hopefully having people connect with it. So if the byproduct, you know, if that also includes some people who don't like what I'm doing, I'm more than okay with that. Like there's music out there that I don't like. I think you could say that about anyone. So yeah, I'm just like very acclimated and comfortable at this point in terms of like the whole mechanism of making music by myself, releasing it, you know, articulating it in as many ways as possible. There have been periods of time where Fear of Water has been performed live with multiple people. But yeah, it's in its current iteration. It's just me doing everything and then going into the studio with like a featured performer on each song to, you know, give their special sauce to whatever I'm working on.
how good does it feel to see your songs come to life?
Very, but it's delayed gratification. So like sometimes these songs take like months, if not a year. So the song that just came out with Heidi from Butcher Babies, we started recording in December of 2021. And I started recording it with Sahaj, and he essentially just like got busy. But also I joined Raw after recording music with him. And it kind of got backburnered by a bunch of other stuff in life. And you know, so to know that the tracking for that song was done in December of 2021 and didn't see the light of day until February of 2024 it's wild. And during that time, you know, I did like the amount of not only quality control, but it kind of loops around on itself. Like you do so much quality control, you're like, oh, this is exactly what it needs to be. But then you keep listening and it kind of tips over that point. You're like, oh, actually, this isn't good. I need to go back in and refine it more. So, you know, and especially doing this by myself, it's like, it's more gratifying than creating music with other people, but it's also vastly more frustrating and stressful of a process than creating music democratically. Because it's like the buck stops with me. It's either, if it's great, cool, I get to take credit for that. But if it sucks, it's entirely my fault. So once all of that process is done and it's mastered and the album art is done and the video's done and it has its official release, it feels great. It's like a weight off my shoulders, even though it starts a whole new chapter of work in terms of like promoting it and doing interviews about it and hopefully getting it on different radio stations and FM and getting playlist placements. And, but you know, that's what I'm here for. Like I'm fully committed to just kind of the entire apparatus that's required to do what I do. It's just exhausting doing it by myself.
But you know, you could be your own worst enemy. I mean, it could sound absolutely perfect to three of your buddies, and you're just like, no, gotta change this. They're like, no, just
100%.
leave it.
That absolutely has and continues to happen. Like, yeah, definitely my own worst critic. And yeah, but also like there's been a lot of times where I am receptive to that like constructive criticism or the feedback from the friends and peers that I usually reach out to. I can disagree with your feedback, but also still be open-minded enough to incorporate it and then hear it in context and be like, oh shit, you were right. Like, an example is that with the song I did with Aaron Nordstrom from Gemini Syndrome, I sent him, the song was for all intents and purposes finished. And I sent him the song, the lyrics, my version of me singing his parts. And what he sent back was actually, he changed it from a major key to a minor key. And we didn't even discuss that. I'd never even thought about the song that way. And I had this immediate like knee jerk reaction of like, nope, that's wrong. Like, that's not what it's supposed to be, because that's not how I wrote it. But I have so much respect for Aaron and I love Gemini Syndrome. And, you know, I'm doing these a collaboration should be collaborative, not just like you do what I tell you to do. That's not a collaboration. So I sat with it for a second, listened to the song 4 or 5 more times. I was like, this is exactly what it needs to be. And it's so great that I would have never thought of it, doing it that way. So, yeah, I'm all for, I think the songwriting in and of itself is a dictatorship, so to speak, but there's definitely a democratic process in terms of the refinement, and, you know, polishing that, putting pressure on that piece of coal until it turns into a diamond is definitely something that can take a village. But everything leading up to that, I typically do myself in this room.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Working with Heidi and Aaron and Elias, did you have in mind on how you wanted the vocals to be, or did you leave it up to them to put their own twist on it just to see how that did sound?
Elias and Aaron specifically, I had in like no other alternative. I'm just like, this Codependent Parasites is perfect for Elias. Systemic is perfect for Aaron.
Yeah.
I didn't know either of them. I was just kind of like, shit, that'd be cool. And fortunately I got some good introductions from people who vouched for me. And fortunately, the song was good enough to stand on its own for them to say, yeah, I want to be associated with this. I want my name attached to this forever. And, I'm super appreciative of those guys giving me a chance early on because now it's getting a little bit easier to approach new artists because I already have this batch of like 6 really respectable, awesome, varied artists and these songs are getting radio play and it's been on Octane and Codependent Parasites, hit number 10 on the SMR top 50 in February and, hundreds of thousands of streams and plays on YouTube and blah, blah, blah. I have all this like quantifiable data that I can go to the next potential collaborator with and be like, here's what I'm doing. Like, here's my body of work with other reputable people, even though you don't know who I am and you've never heard of me. So Elias and Aaron definitely did like their Nonpoint Gemini syndrome, esque style, but then also like took the opportunity outside of their bands and what they're known for to like explore some new territory. And I fully embraced that. I was 100% on board with what they sent me. Heidi was a little bit of a different story because I definitely had her like, I'm a fan of Butcher Babies. And I had like Butcher Baby Heidi in my head and had a little hard time like looking past that during the kind of concept phase. And One Day is a very like ballady, vulnerable, emotional song. And I was like, I can't see her doing that song. Like I envision her just being this like total, empowered, badass metal ripper on stage. And yeah, she proved me so wrong. Like she absolutely brought that level of like vulnerability and intimacy to the song that it needed. So yeah,
So
sometimes I know exactly what I want, and other times I'm like, any of these scenarios, I want these people to do whatever they want. It is a discussion, but I've never reached out to him and been like, hey, Clint Lowery, like this needs to sound like Sevendust, do your Sevendust thing, or this is never going to see the light of day. Like that's not how I function at all.
So you took Heidi out of her comfort zone then?
I think so. I don't know if she would necessarily say that. I know that it's certainly not what you think of when you think of Butcher Babies, and she absolutely nailed it. And she's been so supportive. The amount of times that she's just like randomly sent me a text message, out of nowhere and just been like, hey, woke up with the song in my head. Thank you so much for having me be a part of something so special. Like, it's been awesome. Like, and I would love to collaborate. I already talked to her. I was like, we should do a song again in like 6 months or a year, but just it should be the most brutal, heavy shit you can possibly imagine to like, throw people a curveball. So, and she's totally down. So yeah, it's great, man. Like working with her is a total joy.
But that's got to be gratifying to you, and especially it's got to be good to hear that, knowing that, hey, I want to do this more often. I want to put my shit out there more.
Absolutely, 100%. Like the more I use the snowball analogy of like, the top of a mountain, and I have this snowball that I'm holding with 2 hands that I put together all by myself, and then I let it go down from the top of the mountain, and it's fortunately been picking up speed. And I've got it's not only my collaborators, but I've been fortunate enough to work with Sahaj and Kyle Odell in Nashville, and I'm going to be working with Joseph McQueen, who's worked with Bad Wolves and done Howard Jones's like Light the Torch and Scion. And I'm going to keep building that momentum to work with new producers, new engineers, which will open doors to new collaborations, and just keep making progress and achieving new heights in terms of hopefully like chart placement, like playlist placement and chart positions. I hope that the program directors and fans alike continue to embrace what I'm doing. I think if you like what you've already heard, you're gonna love what's coming up next.
What did each artist on these singles bring to that just makes the chemistry work with you all?
I think it's easier to answer that what they didn't do, and what they didn't do is try to sound like me. because what I give them is already like a completed song where I am singing all of the parts, and that is their audio reference for where they should be singing and in theory what the notes are. And like my performance, so Heidi's part is a great example. Like if you heard me singing her part, like it's not it's not, she taps into something totally different. So like and I fully encourage all of my collaborators to do that. So yeah, and then above and beyond, like Marcos Leal from El Nino and Elias from Nonpoint both added like really fucking awesome bars, like super heavy rap shit in the bridge of both of their respective songs. And that was a total unique creation. Like that wasn't a part of the original song that I sent them, but they understood the core message of the song and wanted to do some writing contributions, which was great. And with any of these people, I couldn't sound like any of them if I wanted to. So it's great that like we all maintained our original sound, but each of these collaborators are able to come to a Fear of Water song without it having to sound like Nonpoint or having to sound like Sevendust or having to sound like El Nino. And yeah, it seems mutually beneficial in that way, is in that there's fertile ground for everyone involved to like stretch their legs. I'm not just like do the Nonpoint thing. It's like, no, do whatever you want. Like do what you think is going to be best for this part. And all of the artists so far have been really great at embracing that.
So, David, did these singles turn out exactly the way you wanted them to, or better?
I feel like there should maybe be a third option there. So, I don't know if better is what I would say. There are songs that turned out differently than I envisioned, especially if you heard, I'll never release this in terms of on a streaming platform, but it's very interesting to hear like where the song goes from its initial demo, what I write in this room, and then I take that and I go to Nashville and I work with a guy like Kyle Odell, and we break down the entire song. We go through every single guitar part, all of the drum programming, bass lines, chord choices. Do we decide, like, do we change the key of the song? Like, does my voice sound better, 2 notes higher? Totally reconstruct the format of it. Like, should we have a double chorus here? Is it halftime in the bridge? Like, what about an intro here? Is a guitar solo that isn't in there yet? Like, so I go there with the building blocks, and then, Kyle and I, in this particular example, really just deconstruct it and put it back together. And so it's a lot of these have turned into what I didn't anticipate, and I love them. If it's better or worse, I can't say that, but it's definitely not. I would say that none of these turned out exactly the way I planned, which is good. Like that's the point of like collaborating with people, is that they're bringing fresh perspectives, and I believe that everyone involved has helped every single one of these singles so far become vastly better than I could have done on my own, which is great.
How's the feedback been on the release of these singles, man? That's fueled your fire. I know it's been on a top 10, top 25, something like that here recently, but I mean, what's the feedback been so far that you've been seeing?
Yeah, so I mean, the feedback on Codependent Parasites with Elias was universally, I don't want to say universally, it was overwhelmingly good. And especially like getting it on test drive in December on Octane was a huge part of that, like getting pushed even more. The Nonpoint community, the 361 community, did a really great job of taking the ball and running with it and really embracing it, because they love Elias. And we let that song breathe as much as possible before I released new music. I didn't want to like cannibalize any kind of interest that I had on a single that has some momentum. So really just this week now should be the first week that both Systemic and One Day start showing up on this really great network. I mean, in the 13th week of Codependent Parasites climbing the charts, it was getting something like 750 plays a week on FM stations across the country, which is amazing considering
awesome.
You don't know me. Like the average listener is hearing me for the first time. And then you look at that like SMR top 50, and it's like Foo Fighters, Metallica, Disturbed, Avenged Sevenfold, Blink-182, Green Day, Nickelback, and then this band you've never heard of before, which is me. And that was a very surreal experience. So we like let the Codependent Parasite life cycle kind of come to its conclusion, and we're starting a new like promotional push with these 2 songs, which is interesting because, and I encourage people to go check out the videos on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, or at least just go stream the songs. That Systemic and One Day are very different vibes. They're both definitely like Fear of Water songs, but Systemic is just in your face, musically complex, kind of face ripping hard rock melodic metal type song, and One Day is a very like somber, heartfelt, emotional ballad. And it's going to be interesting. My partner who helps out with radio promotion is very optimistic about like the crossover potential of One Day, and basically getting in front of people who otherwise wouldn't be seeking out like a hard rock artist. And I think a lot of artists have had success with that in the past in terms of having like a radio single that can cross over into other genres of music and welcome them over. So yeah, we'll see. In terms of the initial response that we've gotten from FM stations on both songs so far has been great. In that they've actually been saying like, we like this even better than Codependent Parasites, which is great. We've been getting a lot of really good feedback in the comment section on social. Both of the songs are doing really well on all the streaming platforms, and yeah, so nothing. All of the feedback so far has just made me even more confident about what I'm doing and this journey that I'm on, and I'm really looking forward to releasing much more.
Speaking of that, are you still experimenting with your sound? Do you still want to keep pushing outside that box to see what you come up with?
Absolutely. I have no desire to like, if any of these songs do exceptionally well, I am going to resist all urges to come back into this room and be like, all right, let me write the next version of that song, which a lot of artists fall into that trap. I get it. Just to be totally honest, I'm not doing this for like financial gain. If this becomes something that is financially viable and commercially viable, that's amazing. But I'm not allowing that to influence the different creative territories that I explore. So absolutely, you're going to hear some pretty interesting territory explored in the upcoming singles. Again, both ranging from like, mellow, emotional, like approachable downbeat stuff, and all the way very much so on the other side of the spectrum of like the heaviest shit I've ever written. And it's cool that I like have a vehicle that allows me to explore that entire spectrum of rock music without compromising what Fear of Water is. And it is a benefit of like not being signed, is that like I don't answer to anyone. I'm just like, I'm gonna go right. I have like the kind of like unlimited possibilities, and with the success of these previous songs, like it's only fueling that creativity more, and it's only driving me to explore more territory. So yeah, I'm definitely not even close to finished in terms of trying new things.
Are we going to get another album down the road with all this, or will we just get releasing singles at this time?
It's a good question. I for the foreseeable future, I definitely envision this just being many singles. Maybe I put them together into like a unified thing, I guess you would call an album. But like with my previous albums, they're definitely written as entire pieces of music and with like a very intentional track list, and they're all reflective of like what's happening in the world and my life at that particular point in time. And I put out 4 albums before I started doing this series of singles that I'm on now. So to answer your question, I would not anticipate putting out an album anytime soon. Like it's a tremendous amount of effort to do an entire body of work. And while I'm in this kind of unofficial, unconventional limbo of not being a band, not out there touring, not, I don't have label support behind me. I'm just going to keep exploring these different collaborations one at a time. And that basically allows it to each song to be as successful as possible without instead of releasing like 14 songs at the same time and seeing what happens. So yeah, no album anytime soon, but lots of music.
Yeah, and today is the singles world. It's not like it was 15 to 20 years ago when you go buy an album, which I still buy CDs. I am a CD guy. No, I want that physical copy in my hand. But I do
For
have,
sure.
I buy MP3 albums. I do buy them, but yeah, so much has changed, man. It's a
Yeah.
single world now, pretty much.
For sure. And there's still, you know, like I still very much so look forward to my favorite bands putting out albums. I think that's the thing. It's the luxury of being established with a built-in following, but still having the potential to reach new people. It gives you the comfort to confidently release, to invest in what it takes to put out an album and then release it knowing that you're going to be able to go tour on that for a year or longer. And that's just not the position that I'm in. You know, I'm working on getting to that point. So in the meantime, yeah, like you said, it's the age of singles, and this is, you know, that's how streaming platforms work and people's short attention span on social. So yeah, I'm playing in that sandbox for the foreseeable future.
You know, you've been a musician for many years. You're with Raw now. What's that growth musically you've seen from yourself working on all these albums, these singles that impresses you the most moving forward with all these releases that you're going to be doing?
It's hard to, as someone who's like gone through weight loss before, I have also gone through some like big physical transformations before. It's never something in my experience that you like look in the mirror one day and you're like, oh, holy shit. Like, look at that. Like you kind of lose track of your own progress when you are living it in that skin or with these hands every single day. So it's interesting. I was just having this conversation with Scott Bowling on Good Company. He was talking about how he can't stand to watch old episodes of his show anymore because the show's evolved so much since then.
Yeah.
But you lose perspective when you don't do that. I listen to my old shit all the time, and it helps me. If at the very least it gives me perspective to be like, oh my God, I'm so much better at like songwriting or guitar playing or creative concepting or like exploring new territory than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So yeah, I don't really realize it in real time, but especially with this approach of like writing singles, I'm pushing myself to like do the next thing I haven't done before with each song. And I think the biggest evolution is just I've just reached a point where I can do that. And then career-wise, the fact that I've earned enough credibility that it allows me to extend those songs in a way that allows featured performers to contribute their gift to my creation is it's incredible. Like if you told me 5 years ago that we'd be sitting here talking about songs that I wrote with Clint Lowery, I'd be like, you're full of shit. It's not a real thing. Yeah.
And you know what, man? I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm kind of like Scott, which I know I'm not kind of, I am like Scott. I can't go back. I'm the same way. I cringe because I feel like I'm Chris Farley sitting there interviewing what's his name for the
Like
Beatles.
Paul McCartney. He's like, remember that way.
It's no shit, dude. That's how I feel. Like I interviewed Doyle. Doyle from the Misfits was my biggest first interview ever, and I felt like I was Chris Farley interviewing Paul McCartney. And then later on, a couple months, I had Zach Wild, and I was like, "Oh my God, please don't let me screw this up." And how
did you feel about that one?
Chris Farley again.
Okay, I mean, but also think about the Chris Farley thing comes from. It's not like ignorance or lack of skill. It's because the whole part of that thing is that he's so excited to be talking to a Beatle that he's like, you know, you're dealing with this because you're such a passionate music fan and these people mean a lot to you. So like I would much rather have someone be like that than the opposite end of the spectrum where they're just numb to it and the interview has no life, no soul. You just go like I've definitely done interviews before that could have just been an email. Just send me your list of questions and I'll type something up because we're not even talking to each other. You're literally just like reading a question and then checking the fuck out in a big way. So like, don't lose that Chris Farley energy. Find a happy medium between professionalism and Chris Farley, but never lose the Chris Farley. It's a good thing to have.
I love doing it now because I feel like it's just two dudes or a guy and a dude or a chick and a dude sitting and talking, having coffee or drinking a beer and just chatting about life and music. You know, that's the way I want this podcast to be. I don't want nobody to be on here and be like, man, it's just question after question. Like, Steve, where do they lead me to now? You know, it's like,
man. Yeah.
Was there a single that totally ended up sounding different than what it was intended to, possibly for this one?
I mean, so far everything has been we were talking about this a little bit earlier. It definitely goes through an evolution from like what I write in this room, and then once other cooks start coming into the kitchen, so to speak, it can take on it evolves. But I haven't had anything where it's like, this was supposed to be a metal song and now it's an acoustic song at the end of the process. Like there's not been anything that's that much. And part of that is I am pretty resolute in like, I know what I want. I know what my skill sets are. I know what Fear of Water sounds like. So I am, and there have been times where I have fought respectfully against my producer partners at, respectively to whatever I'm working on, because I'm working with them because they're great at what they do and they have a track record of success. And I want that I want that in the toolkit of everything that we're using to work on this song. But I know what Fear of Water sounds like more than anyone else. And it's important that part of like what you're paying these professionals is for their opinion, and their opinion in a certain sense matters more than yours in terms of like, if you're talking about like, I want to make a commercially viable song, like they have more experience doing that successfully than most individual artists. So I've definitely reached a crossroads a few times where I've had to be like, I'm going to die on this hill. Like I hear you. I understand your feedback. I understand how that applies to like a lot of music, but I'm telling you that if we go this route, it's no longer a Fear of Water song. It's just like, we're entering like butt rock territory where it's just like, it's still a good song, but it's not me. And I fight pretty hard for that. So for that reason, no, none of these singles so far have like turned into some completely different thing that's unrecognizable from where it started.
So in your own opinion, Dave, what has been your toughest or best song that you've written so far, if you can pick one?
It's pretty difficult. I think I feel like that's saying what's your favorite movie, because it's so genre specific. And I mean that more so for movies. I definitely see myself in like this kind of modern rock, active rock, even and bordering on progressive rock, progressive metal categories. But like, yeah, like musically, Systemic is a really, really Systemic, and Pray for Yourself, which is the song with Marcos from El Nino, are both really interesting rhythmical songs. Like it explores a lot of really cool syncopated, a lot of interesting like guitar chemistry, a lot of blend between real drums and programmed drums, and how those things support each other and contrast each other. A lot of cool just like ear candy and like a lot of sonic territory that's explored there, and I'm really proud of that. And the substance of those songs is important to me, but like One Day is a completely different beast in my mind, where musically it's relatively straightforward by Fear of Water standards, but it means a great deal to me in terms of like, that song's about the inevitability of we're all going to lose our parents someday, and these are the people that brought us into this world, and barring some sort of tragedy, that we die before our parents, which is even worse. It's like this completely universal experience that we all go through, yet it's still, that suffering is totally subjective and relative to what we have or have not gone through in life, and it's just this crushing blow that we all need to go through. And that's something that's had a profound impact on me in my later years in life. And so like substance wise, One Day ranks up there in terms of my favorite, just in terms of like the message. But musically, I mean, all of them. Like I'm really excited musically about every like territory that's been explored. And I wish there was an easy way of depicting the amount of refinement. Like if I could make like a mini documentary about each song and show you like, here's the riff. Like I just picked up a guitar one night and, crap this couple of jam things together. And like, if you could understand how it went from like boards and nails to this incredible house that I live in now, it's very interesting to see it transform over time, especially when other people get involved and help me see it from a perspective that I didn't have before.
So will the track listing placement be important for your upcoming album or EP releases, or whatever you're going to do around that frame possibly?
When that time comes, yes, but like I'm not thinking about that at all right now. I don't want to be limited by and a big part of it is too is that like typically there are some exceptions, but typically when you do an album, you do it all with one producer and one engineer. There are some examples of like you'll have an album that's produced all by one guy, but then like the radio single, they'll bring in some big gun to do that. And like, I'm just not there yet. I want to have the opportunity and flexibility to work with a variety of different producers and engineers to explore it's kind of like a Goldilocks thing. Not that I'm unhappy with the work that's has been done with anyone else, but like I don't know until I experience these things. So like I'm trying to work with as many people as possible to find like what is that perfect sonic sweet spot of someone who can like fully unlock all of my potential and understand because there's things that they do and know that I'm not capable of doing, which is why I work with them. So someone's ability to translate feedback, totally not technical feedback that I give them and turn it into this refined product that I'm totally confident about releasing is a really valuable skill set. So yeah, I'm not thinking about an album or EP or anything like that right now, but that allows me the freedom to explore all these different collaborations, working with a wide variety of different producers and engineers, and exploring a lot of different sonic territory from song to song.
I got to know this though. Are you wanting to reach out to anyone to work with that's on your bucket list? I know there's got to be somebody that you're itching to say, hey, you want to do this with me?
There's definitely like, it's bucketed in terms of like what I view as realistic. And even the realistic list can have some like far reaches on it. But like, I think it's more than likely that I will never be in the same room as Trent Reznor making music. It would be absolutely incredible, like totally like self-actualization, life fulfillment, like this incredible chapter of this huge multi-decade journey up to this point. That would be so incredible to collaborate with him. But I'm all about like manifesting and being positive and like seeing what the universe throws your way. But like, I also have relatively realistic expectations for certain things. I would love to work with Howard Jones from Killswitch Engage. I'd love to work with Chad from Mudvayne. Let's see, there's some like, dude, there's some like curveball type. Like this might sound weird. I would love to work with Fiona Apple. There are a few like not metal artists that you wouldn't think of that I would love to get in the studio with. The extreme example of that would be Christina Aguilera. Like, and again, I don't put her. I don't look at her the way that I look at Trent Reznor, but in terms of her, I just think it's totally unattainable based on her position in the industry. But like, I think Christina would sound so fucking incredible. Her ability to like belt and put some stank on it would be amazing in a hard rock song. And maybe I'll find someone that has like a very similar vocal palette as she does without it being Christina. But yeah, man, I have a growing list of artists that would be incredible to work with. And then there's some older ones. Like I would love to work with Christopher Hall from Stabbing Westward. You know, that's I fucking loved Stabbing. I still love Stabbing Westward, but like, you go and look back at my high school yearbook, all 4 years of my every year I'm wearing my Stabbing Westward Darkest Days t-shirt for for yearbook photo day. So yeah, there's definitely artists from a wide variety of different genres and decades that I would love to work with for sure.
Are you wanting to take this out on the road eventually when you get the time, or no?
If there is, not by myself, if that makes sense. Like if what I'm doing generates enough interest from like a label or a management company, or this becomes like a super group of other social media established, you know, artists, multi-instrumentalists, whatever, like if there's some momentum that is being created outside of just the idea of just doing this by myself from scratch is incredibly exhausting. So you know, I'm actually much more interested in the idea of using Fear of Water to get on people's radar, get in the right place at the right time, and to land a spot in one of these that like every week you hear some story about like a really well-established band that has turnover. And yeah, I want to be on people's radars in the right place at the right time when the decision is made about like, okay, Bring Me the Horizon, they lost their keyboard player, Dayseeker needed a drummer, Pop Evil needed a drummer, Smashing Pumpkins needed a guitar player. Like there's more and more of these examples. You know, Sepultura's drummer just quit like right before their tour. Like there's all of these things that keep coming up, and I want to continue to like establish myself as a well-known multi-instrumentalist with a wide variety of versatility. So I'm taken seriously in consideration when some of these conversations are happening about how the lineup of an established band could evolve. So we'll see.
Now we're going to get to know Dave just as Dave musical stuff here. We're going to scratch that ear here for just a little bit. So if you could write an
Sounds good.
album equivalent to your favorite band's album, which album would that be? Man, if you could say, if I could write an album just like that, possibly, which one would it be? What band?
Oh my God.
And I know there's a lot that's going through your head right now, probably Stabbing Westward and all that.
So Sevendust, Animosity by Sevendust is just like a sonic masterpiece in my mind. Like, it's just front to back. They hit like all the notes, and when I say notes, I mean like emotional notes. Like, they just, the track listing and everything is so perfectly planned out. Great song choice. Just there's some cool features on there. Like, yeah, man, like that's, I mean, it's not dated, but it is in my mind like really critical for like, it was great for the time that it came out.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few albums like that where I'm just like front to back, you know, it's incredible. And then when I look at those, so like the other day I was talking with Ben Gross, I believe his name is, the guy that produced Fuel's second album, Something Like Human. A lot of people know Fuel because of Shimmer, and then this that was on their first album. The second album had Bad Day and Hemorrhage in My Hands, which are both like very radio friendly ballady type songs, which is fine. But anyone who likes hard rock music that has not given that album the time of day, like, go back and listen to it. It's fucking awesome. There are so many great hard rock cuts on that album. To be able to have like a fully accessible album that has like some lead singles, but also some stuff where you're like, this will never be on the radio, but it sounds fucking incredible, and you get to explore a lot of different cool sonic territory. I would love to do that.
I know you're in Raw, but if you could be a member in an iconic band and play one of their legendary shows, which band would it be and what show would it be possibly?
Oh my God.
Put them on the spot, folks.
Man, like, I mean, playing with Sevendust would be amazing. But just also thinking about like some bigger bands. I think Sevendust should be way bigger of a band than they are. Like, it's hard for me to understand how like Breaking Benjamin is this. I love Breaking Benjamin, but like, if I just see Sevendust and Breaking Benjamin being absolutely at the same echelon in terms of the quality of music that they're putting out, and it's being accessible to like modern hard rock fans. So playing with Breaking Benjamin, like playing some sold out arena tour with Breaking Benjamin would be absolutely incredible. Playing with 9 Inch Nails would be absolutely incredible. Like, yeah, man, like, there's so many bands that I respect of varying sizes and relevancy and whatever, but it would be cool to just do like one headlining gig of like playing to 120,000 people at, you know, Aftershock, Louder Than Life. Something like that would be fucking amazing.
You know, I've told Clint, I've told John, and I've told LeJean, being on my podcast, I've told them based on here, like, look, there's no way in hell that you guys should not be a headlining band like at Louder Than Life, at Sonic Temple, all these festivals. I mean, well, I'm going, what the hell? These guys can throw down with anybody, and primarily, mostly, better than some of these other ones. I'll say that right now.
Yeah, I mean, that is also my opinion. You know, I'd be curious to hear from like an industry perspective, some label guy or some radio, like why that's not the case. But yeah, dude, I mean, and they've just always been so good live. They're super great guys. They've persevered through so much. The music industry, like, you know, going through these huge ebbs and flows. Clint leaving the band for 3 albums and then coming back.
Yep.
LeJean is just like one of the best frontmen ever. Just such an incredible voice and energy and interaction. Just like everything about that band just like checks these major boxes for me in terms of like, they're just incredible. And it's hard to understand why they are not massive, like just huge. But I'm also very happy that they still have like incredible longevity. They have such a hardcore fan base that they know every time they go out and tour, like, people like me are going to show up and support them in a big way. And even this last album, Truth Killer, did very, very well and had some great lead singles doing really well on Octane and FM stations. So like they're still great. They're still like, in my mind, like at the top of their game. It's just guys like you and I look at the industry as a whole and you're like, how
Yeah.
how
It's like,
dude. So like I went to this festival in this very rural area outside of Paris last year called Hellfest, and it's fucking an absolutely incredible music
yes.
festival. I was gonna say metal festival, but it covers, I mean, like Def Leppard played in Motley Crue, but also like death metal bands, and Nothing More played in Papa Roach, and Architects, and fucking Machine Gun Kelly was one of the, he wasn't the headliner, but Machine Gun Kelly opened up for Motley Crue, and I was like, why are you doing this? Like, this is not no. And it was amazing because we're in the like I was there with Nothing More, and they have this super awesome like VIP, not VIP, but like artist area that's in this elevated structure that overlooks the entire festival, so you can see like 80, 90, 100,000 people, and the two main headlining stages are right next to each other, which I like because it's like, as soon as MGK was done, Motley Crue started immediately on the next stage. But what you saw is that, and the people are kind of dispersed evenly. MGK comes on stage, starts playing the first song, and you just see 40,000 people leave the stage that MGK is like actively playing on, they would rather sit in front of a blank stage and just wait for Motley Crue than to sit there and watch MGK pretend to be a rock star for an hour. Like, I truly don't understand why. I don't like to be a hater, but it's just like knowing where he came from and like trying to be this hardcore rapper and trying to like talk shit and pick fights with Eminem, and then all of a sudden he's just like, now I'm a punk guy, now I play guitar, and he's on the cover of Guitar Magazine. Like, this, it's very clear to me that this is not a meritocracy as it comes to him. Like, he's using money and connections and label power. Like, he has not earned what so many other way more legitimate, way more talented, way more passionate, way more just like our authentic musicians have fought their entire lives to earn. And he can just be like, I'm switching genres now. It leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. And then to see that rewarded with like almost headlining slots at these festivals is like, what are you doing? Who is this for? I don't get it.
I'm going to say this right now. I would rather see Darius Rucker up there from Hootie play his music than see MGK.
Yes.
Fuck you, MGK.
Because Hootie's he's good. Like, he's, I'm not a huge Hootie fan, but he's like, you can like, he's just undeniably himself, and he's great at it. And there is an authenticity there that's undeniable. Yeah, man, the poser thing is, and I'm not gatekeeping. I'm not being like, this is only for certain people. It's just like, you literally just did this total genre pivot. Not a fan, man. It's very rare that I go into an interview and speak disparagingly about anyone, but there's just, I really don't enjoy that guy.
You know what? And for Hootie, Darius Rucker to take an old band named Old Crow Medicine Show. If you listen to that, love Old Crow, love Old Crow. If he can take their song, oh my God, my mind's going blank now.
Wagon Wheel.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. He can take Wagon Wheel and take his twist on it and make it sound so good. Yeah. Hootie knows what he's doing. Darius Rucker is the man. He's the man.
I completely agree.
All right. So, what's been your most memorable show that, being with Raw or just whatever you're doing, that you've been a part of that you still can't believe that you were to this day?
It's two shows, but at the same venue. So I got the opportunity to play two sold out shows with two different bands at the Machine Shop in Flint, Michigan. And that's just like a very iconic venue, not only to me, but I think it's very well respected. It's tiny actually by like a lot of venue standards, but I got to perform there with Nothing More, which was just incredible. And there's video of that on my Facebook and YouTube. Just like having the opportunity to actually get behind the kit with one of my favorite bands was just unreal. And then 2 months later, I came back there with Raw, and we did a headline set and sold it out. And it was surreal, man. It was just really, really cool. It just felt like a full circle. The fact that happened within 2 months of each other made me it really just gave me so much like gas in the creative tank I don't know, it really helps. It's not so much validation. It's just like I'm typically I need to like, if there's something that good that might be coming up, I try not to think about it as much as possible until it's like actually happening. So like even with these collaborations, I'm like, this could fall apart at any fucking second, including, and I know specific examples that I can't talk about, of like artists. There are collaborations out there that were already recorded and sound amazing and will never see the light of day because of label nonsense. And that happened after the fact. So like these guys were thinking like, this is it, man. Like we're going to go from down here to up because this collaboration is so incredible. And I can't believe all of the things that needed to happen to get us in the same room. And like, we made this investment and we shook all these hands and did all this networking stuff, and only for it to never see the light of day. So, again, even if you ask me a year before, let alone 10 years before that, do you think at any point in time within 2 months of each other, you'll be playing with two totally different bands that you love, headlining a sold out show at a venue that you really, really love? I would say absolutely not. So yeah, it's been really encouraging.
I got to say this too before I let you out here. You know, you're part of Raw, and to me, Raw is a very underrated band still too. I mean that respectfully, because
no, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
If you mentioned Sevendust, you mentioned the band Earshot from back in the day. I mean, all these bands to me are top caliber of pure metal rock festival calibrations. I mean, these fuckers are, they have to be at your festival, either 1 or 2 years, something like that, but they've got to be there. And this band Raw, they're not a joke. This band can fucking lay down. I mean, you guys can throw down with the best of them too.
Yeah, man. So, I've only been the drummer since 2021, and it's, been great. We've already done 3 tours, but, I have nothing to do with the booking process, but I'm genuinely confused as to, especially with these newer festivals like Sick New World and When We Were Young, like these festivals that are specifically made to like tap into the music from like 20 years ago. And that's not to say like Sahaj has been very prolific. Like there's some of his best music has been released in the last 4 years. But yeah, so in both regards, like the fact that Raw is not getting any festival placements for this, like the nostalgic festivals and then the current festivals as well. I don't know how it works. I don't know if there's politics involved or focus group testing or whatever. I'm not like angry about it. It's just confusing to me. And who knows, maybe it'll change, and I'll be there with fucking bells on when that happens. But in the meantime, I mean, I'm still like, I love the lineups. I'm not looking at the lineup and being like, how the fuck is that band on there but not me? Danny Wimmer and all those guys like do a great job of picking these lineups. I've been kind of perpetually, and even well before I was even in the band, I felt this way, like the way that you're talking about it. I'd look at like Sonic Temple, or like even when it was Rock on the Range, I'm like, there's definitely some bands that's like, they should be here. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into those decisions, and I have nothing to do with it. So,
all right, Dave, my friend, how can folks stay in touch with you? Buy all these singles, everything that you got coming up. How can you do that, good sir?
Definitely connect with me on social media. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are my main channels, specifically on Facebook and Instagram. Like I respond to anyone who's a part of those communities already knows that I like literally respond to every single comment, every single DM. I take great pride in being social on social media. I'm building a community of like-minded music enthusiasts. They're giving me, a chance to be receptive to my music and maybe even help evangelize it, help get it out to their friends. So the least I could do is, listen and participate when someone wants to have a conversation with me, even if it's critical. Like I'm here to discuss music. So like, let's do it. And then, all Fear of Water music is available on all major streaming and download platforms. So definitely check that out. Find some songs you like. Please put them on your favorite playlist. Definitely helps the algorithm, give me some more preferential treatment when I release new music. So yeah, any little help like that, following something, sharing a post, adding a song to a playlist really helps independent artists like myself.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up. You only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. Please get out and subscribe to our YouTube page. Of course, BODS Mayhem Hour. If you like what I'm doing, and I hope you guys and gals do, and for the ones that's already subscribed, thank you so much. That means the world to me. Honestly, it does. Please get out and check out Dave Perry, Fear of Water, new singles, One Day featuring Heidi Shepherd of Butcher Babies, Systemic featuring Aaron Nordstrom of Gemini Syndrome, and Codependent Parasites featuring Elias Soriano of Nonpoint. Give this man a fair shot. I think you're going to dig what he does. And Dave, thank you so much for being on the podcast this evening.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you supporting independent artists like myself. It means a lot.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.